The Oakwood Country Club stood like a monument to old money against the autumn sky, its perfectly manicured lawns and Georgian architecture a testament to 2 centuries of exclusivity. I parked my deliberately modest Honda next to my stepmother Diana's Ferrari, enjoying the way the valet's eyes narrowed at my car choice. If he only knew about my collection of luxury vehicles housed in a private garage across town. "I'm here for the foundation gala," I told him, handing over my keys. "Service entrance is around back," he replied automatically, not bothering to check the guest list. I smiled, thinking of the changes I'd be making to the staff training manual next week. "Actually, I'm a guest." "Members and their guests only," he insisted, looking at my simple black dress, which had cost more than his yearly salary but deliberately lacked any visible designer labels. "Then it's fortunate I'm both." Elizabeth Morgan, my stepmother, chose that moment to emerge from the club's grand entrance, champagne flute in hand. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me, perfectly painted lips curling into a familiar sneer. "Olivia." She managed to make my name sound like an unfortunate medical condition. "The help is supposed to use the service entrance, though I don't recall hiring additional waitstaff for tonight." "Hello, Elizabeth." I kept my voice pleasant, remembering how this same woman had spent the last 5 years making sure I was excluded from every family event held at her precious country club. "Actually, I'm here for the gala." She laughed, the sound echoing across the marble entrance. "Don't be absurd. This event is for members only. Important people." She gestured to her own designer gown. "Not someone who works out of a shabby office downtown." If only she knew that shabby office was actually the headquarters of Morgan Technologies, the company I'd built from scratch after my father died and Elizabeth had managed to challenge his will, leaving me with nothing but my education and determination. In 5 years, I'd turned that nothing into a tech empire worth billions, all while letting my stepfamily believe I was struggling. "I have an invitation," I said mildly, producing the heavy cream envelope. Elizabeth snatched it from my hands, her French manicure glinting in the evening light. "This must be a mistake. I personally oversaw the guest list." She turned to the valet. "Call security. We can't have gate crashers at our charity event." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "Ms. Morgan is not only invited, she's our guest of honor." Harold Whitman, chairman of the club's board, approached with a warm smile. "Everyone," he called out to the growing crowd of arriving guests, "I'd like you to introduce our new owner." Elizabeth's martini glass slipped from her manicured fingers, shattering on the marble steps. "Owner," she whispered. "Through Morgan Enterprises," Harold confirmed. "The purchase was finalized last week. Quite a generous offer. Helped us clear all our outstanding debts." Elizabeth's face had gone from cream to scarlet. But that's impossible. Morgan Enterprises is a billion-dollar company. Olivia just has that little tech startup." "That little tech startup went public last year," I informed her quietly. "Though you might have known that if you'd ever bothered to learn what I actually do instead of just assuming I was a failure." The crowd of arriving guests had stopped to watch the scene unfold. Among them, I recognized my stepbrother James and his wife Amanda, both looking like they'd been slapped with their own polo mallets. "But we checked," James sputtered, stepping forward. "After Dad died, we had you investigated. Your company was worthless. You checked 5 years ago," I corrected him. "A lot can change in 5 years. Like ownership of your favorite country club." Elizabeth had managed to recover some of her composure, though her hands were shaking. "This is ridiculous. The board would never sell to an outsider." "Actually," Harold interjected, "Ms. Morgan's company now owns most of the premium properties in this area, including, I believe, the building where your investment firm is headquartered, James." My stepbrother went pale. Last month's rent increase suddenly made more sense to him, I imagined. "Shall we head inside?" I suggested. "I believe I'm hosting a gala." The grand ballroom of Oakwood Country Club was exactly as I remembered it from the last event I'd been excluded from. Crystal chandeliers, antique paintings, and enough old money to fund a small country. Elizabeth had made sure I knew about every party I wasn't welcome to attend, every charity event where I wasn't quite important enough to be included. "Your table is this way," Harold gestured, leading me to the head table while Elizabeth trailed behind like a designer-clad ghost. "Actually," I paused, "I think there's been a seating mistake." I picked up Elizabeth's place card from the head table. "The service entrance staff usually sit in the kitchen, don't they? That's where you always seated me." "Now see here," Elizabeth found her voice. "I am still a member of this club. About that, I smiled, producing a folder. The membership committee met this morning. Your membership has been revoked. Revoked? She nearly screamed. On what grounds? Conduct unbecoming a member. I opened the folder. Would you like to review the evidence? 5 years of documented behavior showing systematic discrimination, abuse of staff, misuse of club funds. I looked up. The new owner takes these things very seriously. James stepped forward, ever the investment banker trying to negotiate. Now, Olivia, surely we can discuss this like family. Family? I cut him off. Was it family when you challenged Dad's will? When you and Elizabeth hired investigators to prove I was mentally unfit to inherit? When you forced me to build something from nothing while you lived off his legacy? The ballroom had gone silent, 200 of society's elite watching the drama unfold. That was business, he protested weakly. Yes, I agreed. And so is this. I turned to the waiting staff. Please escort Mrs. Morgan and Mr. Morgan to the service entrance. They can exit through there, as they're no longer members. You can't do this. Elizabeth's voice had risen to a pitch that threatened the crystal chandeliers. Do you know who we are? I know exactly who you are, I replied calmly. You're the people who thought success only counted if it came with the right names, the right connections, the right country club membership. I gestured to the room around us. And now you're standing in my club, realizing that the person you spent years looking down on actually owns everything you value. Security arrived to escort them out, but I wasn't done. Oh, and Elizabeth? That foundation you're so proud of chairing? The one that's hosting this gala? I bought that too. We'll be redirecting its funds to help entrepreneurs who've been told they're not good enough by people exactly like you. Her face crumpled as the full impact hit her. Not just her social standing, but her precious reputation as a philanthropist. All of it now controlled by the stepdaughter she'd dismissed as worthless. As they were led away, Harold approached with a concerned expression. The other members are rather shocked. Perhaps a speech would help smooth things over. I nodded, stepping up to the podium. The room fell silent as I surveyed the crowd. All the people who'd followed Elizabeth's lead in excluding me, who'd accepted her narrative about the failure in the family. Good evening, I began. For those who don't know me, I'm Olivia Morgan, CEO of Morgan Technologies and your new owner. Some of you may remember me as Robert Morgan's daughter, the one who wasn't quite good enough for membership here. The one who worked out of a shabby office downtown while building a tech empire that now controls most of the properties you think you're renting. Uneasy murmurs swept through the crowd. But don't worry, I continued. Unlike my stepmother, I don't believe in excluding people based on perceived status. The club will remain open to all current members. I paused for effect. Though there will be some changes. The next hour was a masterpiece of subtle revenge. I detailed the club's new direction. More diverse membership, scholarships for promising entrepreneurs, an end to the old guard's stranglehold on who belonged and who didn't. The vintage wine cellar Elizabeth had been so proud of, being auctioned off to fund tech education for underprivileged students. The members-only dining room where she'd held court, now open to the public for Sunday brunch. James's precious golf course, where he'd made all his important business connections, being partially converted into an innovation campus for startup incubation. By the time I finished, half the room was in shock, and the other half was frantically checking their phones, no doubt discovering just how many of their assets were actually controlled by my company. The next morning, Elizabeth's face was splashed across the society pages, not hosting her beloved gala, but being escorted through the service entrance of the club she'd once ruled. James's investment firm announced an emergency board meeting, probably realizing that their rent wasn't the only thing I controlled. I sat in my real office, the top floor of the city's most prestigious building, watching the fallout unfold. My assistant brought in a stack of membership applications for the club, along with resignation letters from some of Elizabeth's closest allies. The contractors are ready to begin renovations at Oakwood, she reported, and Mrs. Morgan's personal items have been removed from her locker. Have them donated, I instructed. To that charity she always refused to support because it wasn't exclusive enough. My phone buzzed, Elizabeth calling for the 10th time. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what she'd say. The same things she'd been saying all morning. That we could work something out, that she'd never meant to hurt me, that we were family after all. But I wasn't interested in her definition of family anymore. I had an empire to run, a club to modernize, and a new generation of entrepreneurs to support. The country club's famous Sunday brunch was particularly crowded the following weekend. Society's elite mixed uncomfortably with young tech founders and startup entrepreneurs, all enjoying the previously exclusive dining room. Elizabeth showed up, of course, trying to enter through the main entrance one last time. Security escorted her to the service entrance, just as she'd done to me so many times before. "You can't do this," she'd screamed. "I made this club what it is." "No," I'd corrected her. "You made it exclusive, elitist, and outdated. I'm making it successful." James tried a different approach, sending his lawyers to challenge the sale. They retreated quickly when they realized just how many of their other clients' buildings I owned. The society pages chronicled their fall with the same enthusiasm they'd once covered their rise. "Tech billionaire revolutionizes historic country club," ran alongside photos of Elizabeth being turned away from her favorite shops. Shops that, surprisingly, now had new ownership. But the sweetest moment came a month later, when the club hosted its first innovation summit. Young entrepreneurs pitched their ideas in the same ballroom where Elizabeth had once held court. The wine cellar had been converted into a co-working space, and the members' lounge was now a tech incubator. I kept Elizabeth's old parking space, though. It made a perfect spot for my shabby Honda, right next to the Tesla charging stations I'd had installed. The final touch was the new plaque in the entrance hall, right where Elizabeth's cherished donor recognition had hung. It read, "Success isn't about who you know or where you belong. It's about what you build when no one believes in you." Below it, in smaller letters, "In memory of Robert Morgan, who taught his daughter that true worth isn't measured by club membership." Elizabeth and James still turn up occasionally, trying to negotiate their way back into the club. Each time, they're directed to the service entrance, where a small plaque now reads, "Reserved for those who judge others by their appearances." The valet who tried to turn me away that first night? He's now head of security, thoroughly trained in treating everyone with respect, regardless of what they drive or wear. And me? I still use that shabby office downtown, though now everyone knows it's the headquarters of a billion-dollar tech empire. Success, after all, doesn't need to show off. It just needs to prove everyone wrong. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just buying the country club. It's changing everything it stood for. And sometimes being excluded from the right circles just motivates you to create better ones of your own. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.